All right, sorry for the delay, everybody. It's all ready to get started. Ignite their week. Okay.
I didn't have the spot.
Oh, I need, yeah, or a little clicker.
Yeah. Just yell if it happens again, but it's terrible.
Okay. Thank you. So, strengthen relationships. Who needs relationships? This business. So today we're going to cover number 12 and 13. Strengthen relationships and qualify potential. No.
I think so.
Okay. Know that growth comes from clarity, priorities, and focused action. What does that mean? Why do you have your sunglasses on? Partying last night?
Glasses are hard.
Who wants to help with this? Know that growth comes from clarity, priorities, focused action. Probably no wrong answer. Right? Want me to help?
When you make no progress unless you have a plan in place and you know what you're working towards and you're focused on what you're, but not focused. So growing.
Right, right, okay. And yeah, it pretty much exactly sums it up, right? So clarity and priorities would be the things that like you want to get clarity around what are your priorities, right? And what's your goal? And what you're gonna do, how you're going to approach that goal, like get your priorities in line, and then you just focus in on it and take action. Really is what it's all about. So for example, you come up with a business plan. And if your business plan is like, I'm gonna do 20 deals, that's good. That's a good start. But then where's the clarity on that? Like, how are you gonna get the 20 deals? Where are they gonna come from? And what are you gonna do? Right? That's the hard part, right? And then, but once you get it, then you just focus in on it and you go for it. So, holy smokes, we got a lot of stuff here. So, okay, so lead generation, relationship management, client referral loop. Okay, client and referral loop. So number one, lead capture, prospect and marketing. So when you think about that, like what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Think about lead capture or prospecting and marketing. Like say, who are the people that come to your mind? Where do they come from?
So if you know in your database.
Right? A lot of times people think internet. Right? Uh-oh, did we lose everybody again? A lot of times people think so, only internet leads, right? But it's I mean, it can be, they can come from anywhere, right? But there's a wide variety of where your leads can come from. But so a lead capture really could be from the internet. It could be an ad that you ran. And then you've got this lead, somebody that you haven't talked to before, so that they've acknowledged that you're there because they clicked on one of your ads or whatever. So now, where does the database come in? Well, they're already in your database, but you can't really converse with them until they kind of gave you permission by clicking in there, but then they're not really a contact or anything until you've had a conversation with them, right? Then you start to qualify them a little bit. So first you get them in as leads. Now those leads could be from the internet or a lot of times really like from relationships, right? Because even a lot of the people that are on the internet floating around, clicking on things, already have an agent. You should be or want to be that agent, right? And then contacts, strengthen existing relationships. And then number 3, prepare contacts for conversion. And interactive needs, be interactive and needs-based offerings. Alright, so basically, I mean, what does that mean to you guys? You're preparing the lead for conversion or the contact at that point. But really what it is like, say, so let's say today somebody clicks on one of your ads, you converse back and forth a little bit, asking questions, send them some information. And all of a sudden they're saying, they're asking you questions, maybe it's about a property or what have you. And you start asking them questions and you're starting to qualify them. Then that's your preparation for conversion. So you're getting them basically into your database and maybe setting them up on a smart plan, whether that's a smart plan in command or whether it's your own version of, I'm going to reach out to them every times a week or whatever, just to touch base and say, hey, how's your search going? Or is there anything we can do to help with that? So that's one form of preparing them for conversion, right? Any questions, Jen? Do you have anything to throw in there?
Well, I mean, once you get them into a conversion state, usually, you need to find out what they're looking for, get moving on it. And then that, successful to end with that client is just going to essentially, maybe the next lead capture you're getting is their cousin or their coworker or their, you know what I mean? So I think with the lead capture, they're talking about, like you said, there's the internet, but there's also, is it a lead that you have already converted that has now sent you somebody new because you did such a good job a few months ago? And it can come from so many different directions.
Yeah, good point. And so I think you have pretty good success doing that.
Cape Breton is a small spot, so everybody's related to someone else. So yeah, it does turn into there's times, I mean, I don't know, you guys are in a bigger market up there, but there's times that I might know 10 to 12 different people all in the same family related somehow, that started off with, I listed grandma's house, and then it just kind of goes from there.
Right. But if I were to challenge you on that a little bit, you're like not as easy as that, because you also have, like, out of those people, those other family members, they get to make their own choices and choose their own agent. Where it is a small town, they also know other agents, right?
Yes, and it doesn't always work out that way. I guess the whole thing is if you're preparing your contact for conversion, you're staying in touch, you do a good job through, you keep everybody happy. Sometimes you're meeting family members along the way. Basically, there's a good chance you'll get something from it at some point. You're not guaranteed anything, but that's the whole point of keeping in touch with your database, smart plans, just keeping front row center in front of them as much as you can without being a pest.
Right. Okay. Cool. So that's, yeah, exactly. So that was my point. That was what I was snooping for, right? So when you get a client, you do whatever you can, you pull out all the stops to make sure they're happy, you get them from point A to B safely. It's an enjoyable experience. Therefore, they're wanting to refer you to their friends.
Yeah.
Okay, can we move on to the next? So leads versus contacts. So leads, you have the right to have a one-way conversation. Contacts, you've engaged in a two-way conversation. Value-based relationship has been established, or at least working on it. So this is showing your database. Inside your database, you have leads, you have contacts. So as we all know, like, does everybody here use Command? You guys are using Command? So you know that, like, say, you could probably quickly figure out who's a lead and who's a contact in your database, right? Um, so here they're talking about relationship management and leads from relationships. So, and then converting them, or strengthening an existing relationship, and prepare them for conversion. So with interactive and being interactive, and having a needs-based offering. So basically, like, what they're really saying here is that you're taking your contacts, we're not just leaving them in the database and never reaching out to them in any way, shape, or form, right? So we want to give them, something that want to stay in touch with them, but give them some information that coming from contribution, really not saying, hey, when are you ready to buy a house? When are you ready to sell your house? It's more, I'm thinking of you, this is my job, but I want you to remember that I'm a professional real estate agent. Anything to add? Anybody have any questions? No, nothing? Okay. So. Yeah, I'm just looking at a little thing here that's actually quite helpful. So remember, like, do you guys know the Y4C2Ts? Right? And I think it's the third C, communication. And so you want to, like, seek first to understand, right? So like when you're preparing them for conversion, you don't want to just be sending them random stuff. You want to understand what it is they're looking for. Little thing. Everybody's a little bit different. We're going to set our clients up a little bit differently. Each one. Focus on building relationships and take market share. Does that mean market share?
Do better than
Yeah,
really,
right?
just be offering more.
Yeah. What's a way you could, this seems a bit overwhelming, right? There's like say in our province, there's not as bad as Ontario, but we have like 2,000 agents, right? Compared to the number of people in the province and how big we really are and how much business we really do. That's a lot of competition, right? So when you focus on building relationships, could you not think about the market share being, you want to kind of get as much of the market share as you can from your own relationships? Because we know that if you were to, let's say you have, I don't know, 500 friends on Facebook, for example. Out of those 500 friends, how many do you think would be, potentially could be your clients? Well, let's just pick a number and say there's 400 of them that could potentially be your clients. So a bunch of them are real estate agents. Some of them you wouldn't want to work with, right? So out of those 400, do you think that every single one of them are going to transact with you when the time comes for them to transact? And do you think that every single one of them is going to refer their friends and family every single time they hear of somebody that's ready, willing and able to transact? And the answer is probably no, right? So if you were to kind of like get less overwhelming, you could think of it from that perspective, like, so you're building your relationships. You could start with the people that you already know. And you want to kind of figure out ways that you can help them remember that you're a real estate professional and this is what you do, and that you would actually be open to doing business with them and their friends. Then focus on how much of that market share can you get. Right? As opposed to like the big picture is like, man, I'd have to have my face on every single boss and every single billboard, and I don't have time, and how am I gonna take all those calls, and what if nobody calls me and I just spent, you know, all of my money on marketing or whatever? Why not look at it from that perspective? Just a thought. Anybody have anything to add? We really have 9 participants on Zoom.
I think that what you need to do is you've got them in your database, and if you just leave them to kind of twist in the wind and you forget they're in there, you know, you're losing the opportunity to, you know, it doesn't have to be constant. It doesn't have to be, like Grant said, every billboard in town and spending a fortune on marketing. It can be, you know, you sold them a house, so you're sending them a home anniversary card, or you're sending them a yearly anniversary of the home sale email. You're sending out a birthday card or a birthday email through a smart plan. Just basically, once you've got them in the database, just you want to keep yourself in the back of their mind for when they do come to make a decision about real estate. They're not completely forgetting about you because, hey, I got a birthday card last month from her, or you know what I mean? There's just ways that you can keep in their orbit that will keep you front and center in mind and give you more of an opportunity to get that business when the time comes that they want to make a move.
Right. Exactly. And use the example of a birthday card. And there's so many, but I mean, I'd say like, I think there's, you know, a gazillion different trainers out there that will all teach something different. I don't know, Jen, if you agree or not, but I think it always boils down to yourself. And you know, you know, kind of like you're
Yeah,
not comfortable.
I'm the queen of avoiding the phone call, or, you know, oh, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to call these 5 people and, you know, I haven't talked to them in a while. I am the queen of avoiding that. I will do just about anything to avoid making a phone call. I will send out emails. I'll do smart plans. I'll send out cards. But myself, the most uncomfortable thing for me is those phone calls. Hate doing them and usually avoid them. So you have to figure out where your comfort zone is in how often you want to contact them and how you want to contact them.
Would you say that you've built some good relationships along the way without making those calls?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, you're working with them. When you're working with them, obviously, is when you're going to build the best part of your relationship, because you're seeing them all the time. You're trying to find them a home, or you're trying to sell their home. You know, it's when that kind of goes to the wayside that you have to figure out a way to get in there. But I am not someone who will pick up the phone and call people. I know some people are really good at that. It's just not my thing, because I'm kind of one of those people that doesn't want my phone ringing for someone to just go, hey, I'm just touching base, you know. So where I'm not the person that would want that, I don't do that.
And if you're not making phone calls and you're still not getting any business, then you probably should make phone calls.
Or like what you told me one time about how to do that, and like if someone knows you, are they really gonna be said? I can't remember, you said it really
Yeah.
well, but
So it's like, it comes down to mindset, right? So a lot of people feel like, man, I don't want to, like Jen just said, I don't want to make that phone call because then I'm that needy person that I'm only calling for myself, right? I'm like, it's my own know, my own needs and wants, right? And it's kind of like, that's a bit of a block. Think about it. And yet, at the same time, though, silly analogy, well, sad analogy, but like say, if somebody's on the street, they're starving, their personality is not to go ask somebody for money or food. If they're starving, they're going to go ask for the money and food. Eventually, they're going to get some, right? And we're starving sometimes. Like we need money to pay the bills. So sometimes it's out of necessity that people will actually step out of that comfort zone, make themselves uncomfortable. Um, However, if your mindset is a little bit different in that, so I'll ask you, okay, so who here feels that, so let's say you've got a close personal friend or a family member that's thinking about buying or selling, right? They want to sell their house and they're going to choose an agent, right? They know that you're an agent. They know that I'm an agent. And I only know them a little bit because I met them once or twice and you know them really well. Like you've known them for years and you're really close to them. And they call me sell the house. Does that kind of hurt a little bit? Does that kind of burn a little bit? Do you think, wow, that doesn't sit well with me, right? Um, what thoughts go through your mind? Most people think, like, aside from the fact that we have a relationship and they should have called me, think I could have done just as good of a job. Would have taken care of them. Like, would you? Would you take care of their needs? Would you really care about about how well the transaction went? Would you really go out of your way to make sure that everything is a safe, so you guide them safely from start to finish and and focus hard on doing a good job, pay your attention? Would you actually answer the phone at 8 o'clock Friday night when somebody calls and asks questions about our listing? The answer is yes. Like you would do whatever you can, right? And you have the ability to do that. So if that's the case, then are you not doing them a disservice by not calling them, right? And letting them know and offering up your services? Because most people think, oh, I'm doing this because I'm like, I'm begging for money. But no, really what you're doing is you're offering them your services. And nobody's going to take care of their needs better than you. Like I probably wouldn't either because you would care more personally about them. And you would care more about their family because you know them really well inside and out. And you know a lot more about their situation and you know what they need, what their needs are, right?
So changing your mindset, believe me.
Yeah.
That's the things to make job.
Right. You already know though, right? You know you could. Like you've got it. So you want to change that mindset a little bit. And anyway, okay. So starting with mindset. Today's conversation is tomorrow's transaction. So that picture actually means a lot, right? But we're always planting seeds and watering the garden and just waiting for harvest time, which is when the sign goes on the lawn, right? But what does this mean to you though? Like when you think about it, like so you're at a house party and you're gonna float around and say, hi, I'm a real estate agent. Here's my card, right? Oh, you're not gonna do that. And you're so I'll just share with like know, a lot of people think that I was walking to the room and able to scoot through the whole room and talk to everybody and, and whatever. And I can't, that's not me. It's really not my personality, but if I'm at a party and there's 50 people there before I leave, I will meet one or two people that I hadn't met before. I'll have good conversations with them. And even when I started in real estate, and was, fairly new, people still ask questions about real estate. So like they knew I was a real estate agent. And everybody's got their own style and how they do things, right? But you don't wanna not talk about it because that's what you do, right? So you're whenever you're having those little conversations, you're actually planting seeds. Right? Because the people that are asking you questions. So let me ask you this. Okay, so if you're in a room with about 50 people and you happen to stumble across somebody and you're standing there chatting with them, and they say, "So you're a real estate agent?" "Yeah, I am." "It's the market." It's the question, right? What's going on in the market today? It really doesn't matter what the question is, but that's usually what one of the main ones that comes up, right? And or now they're talking about interest rates and so on. And none of that really matters. What matters is that you're having a conversation with them. And they actually brought up real estate. So if they thought for any reason they would never want to do business with you, they've already made their mind up that you could be a candidate. Could be somebody that they would interview in the future. See how I'm getting that? It's like, think about it like they had the choice. Could bring it up. They could talk about real estate with you or not. And they do. That's their way of kind of letting the cat out of the bag that I would probably consider working with you. You don't even have to ask them that because they brought it up in conversation. Does that make sense?
What would you say to that if someone asked you right now, how's the market? So curious.
It's such a loaded question, right?
It's a hard one to answer.
It is.
There's so much to it. I stumble because it's complicated.
Exactly.
So what do you say?
What you just said, what I just said. That was it, right? It's a natural conversation. I kind of laugh about it and say, I wish I had a straight answer for you. Like the market is so weird now. It's all over the map. And so just out of curiosity, why do you ask?
That's a good one.
Right? Because like, and if they 9 times out of 10, we're gonna shift the conversation a little bit. And when I say why do you ask, they're like a lot of times it's well, just curious really, or maybe they're just trying to strike up conversation, so you don't want to make it awkward or uncomfortable, right? So you just wait for a couple seconds and then you can kind of proceed from there. And then sometimes I'll even just cover my tracks a bit and say, reason I ask that is just because it's like it's all over the map, right? And some people are curious about commercial real estate, some are curious about residential, some are curious about multi-unit, some are curious about what's going on in the city, some are curious about what's going on in the country. Right? That's what you do. You kind of just gauge in the conversation, then ask a question. And so today's conversation is tomorrow's transaction. Really does start with the mindset and the conversation. You'll see that. So over time, what'll happen is you're going to see the same person at a party again, because usually you're traveling in the same little groups, right, in circles. And eventually the conversation gets longer and more depth. So another way though, Sue, another good thing to do is say, actually, if you'd like, sometime I'd be happy to sit down and we can have a chat and go over, anything you want to know. Right? And then I always make the joke too and say, that'll give me some time to prepare. I may not have the answers right now. Okay, so once you meet your new contacts, you either do business with them immediately or you don't. Either way, once you've met them, put them in your database and you stay in touch with them forever. Keller. He's right. Like that's what you want to do. I mean, unless decide you don't like them on the road, then you can kind of get rid of them off your database. But we're not supposed to do that too often, right? So when you put them in your like Gary Keller says too, like feed your database, right, and watch it grow. Some people feel like the database is really your, and you guys might have covered some of this already. I don't know what all you would have already covered, but a lot of people like think a database is the names, phone numbers, email addresses, kind of thing, and addresses, right? And that's true, like that's an important, very important part of the database, but what else is important? So what else is important is to know the person and make notes on them in there, like, um. So some of the things that I do would be like, Leah makes fun of me and says you're on Facebook too much, but I'm doing research. So I'll see on Facebook that somebody, like say, just got a new puppy, just for an example, right? I can't think of a better reason to call them. Or even just reach out to them on Facebook. I would do like a private message. Say, man, that's the cutest puppy. Too bad, too bad he didn't have like, too bad somebody took a bite out of one of his ears, but other than that, he's really cute or like something, right? But like you want to use your own personality, right? So anyway, okay. So okay. Follow up. Not really that important.
Don't follow up, they forget.
Yeah, right. Okay, so got lead generation, lead follow-up, transaction. Well, lead follow-up plus lead conversion, which is true. And transact. But actually, Mand is designed to kind of like follow through procedure, this path, right? Why would you say that this is the longest arrow?
We have to follow up with them for a while, or that you can solve.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes it takes like 3 years or 4 years, who knows, right? But like the slide before this, which says keep them in there. You never know, right? You never know when they're gonna transact or when they're gonna be able to send somebody your way. And just keep following up. One time, like, I got this, I got a phone call out of the blue. And the guy goes, "Hey Grant, it's Christian." I said, "Hey Christian, how are you?" I'm like, right? He's like, "Good man, good. Okay, okay, well, we're finally ready. We want to go look at the one you sent us today." Like, okay. Can you tell me which one that is? Because I know there's a lot to go through and I just don't have it in front of me right now. And he's like, "Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. And who all's gonna be there, right?" All else, it's me and Jen, right? I'm like, "Okay, great." Girlfriend or wife is Jen. And then, so then after, like, I had his phone number. Said, "I'm just right in the middle of something right now, but I'll give you a call back. So, and we'll set something up." So then I quickly scrambled and I'm like, good thing there wasn't a whole lot with the same name. And I looked them up and it was like, 2 years, the automated nurturing
Oh, wow.
and a phone call. But like to them, it's like they're seeing it as like you're just going in, you're finding it, you're emailing it and sending it out to them, right? And whatever works, right? But the lead follow-up one could take a long time. And it's also the lead conversion, right? That takes place during that time for the transacting. So the more people that you can get in here, more people will come out there. Identify the goals, convert contacts to closed business. Not a bad idea, I suppose, if we want to get people. So who has, who set their goals for the year? Like who does an annual business plan? You? And so do I. Often you revisit that. Yeah. And,
Halfway through the year. Yeah.
okay,
You're looking at the quarter, probably something that's tracking to try to. Sure, I think.
visit it every quarter. When, I'm the one that asked the question, but what do you mean by visit it?
Sure, it's still realistic and you went into those numbers.
Yeah, right? When you revisit it, what do you like? So do you have it like on a piece of paper and then you go look at it?
Bit of poster.
Poster? And so you get to see it almost every day then if you want to, right? Good. Well, that's good. That's actually, well, like, cause a lot of times we'll spend the day, this is plan, set our goals. And then tuck it away somewhere and then, you know, come November, you're like, where was that one I did last year? And what was the goal? Okay, so it's when part of your business plan is obviously big part is like do business. How much are you gonna do and how are you gonna get there, right? And converting your contacts to close business is the thing we need to do. Okay, so identify the goals. Convert leads and contacts to close business. Stay top of mind. Real estate mind share positioning. Okay. Number of agents interview before choosing an agent. Some of these get pretty interesting and it's really good information to know, right? Because it kind of helps you with the mindset. So when it comes to sellers, 74% of them will interview one agent only. 15% of them will interview two agents. So when you go back to the stuff that we talked about before, you meet the person at the party and you have a conversation, you offer to get together with them again, right? That person met two agents that week. One of them, he had great conversations or she had great conversations with both of them. Didn't really know any other agents, was happy to meet two agents. Then one of those agents had, you know, let's say one approach was the agent said, oh yeah, no, you know, I'm doing this much business and I'm, you know, and I've got this much experience and you know, it's all me, and here's how good I am and everything else. And then the other agent asked a few good questions and just engaged in the conversation. Didn't brag about anything. And that person might think, okay, so the first agent obviously does business and knows what they're doing. The second agent cared about me and what I want to get done. So maybe would still interview both. I probably would want to interview the one agent that cared, that asked the right questions, just to make sure that they have the ability, because that's part of the interview process, right? So you want to get yourself to that, to be maybe that one agent.
Oh. What examples? What do you think?
Yeah, so an example of maybe help me out a little bit. So an
So you
example of,
meet the people at the party,
Yep.
rather than tell them about how to look.
Yep.
And yes, you could offer to meet with them. What could you ask them specifically that would show your interest.
Yeah, so, okay, so maybe we could role play it, okay? So we're at the party and you come up to me and say, hey, so I hear that you're a real estate agent. Okay, so let's start with that, and then you're gonna ask me how the market is.
Okay.
Oh, Sue, how are you?
How are you?
Good, good.
How's the market? I hear you're a real estate agent.
Well, so the market, man, the market is all over the map. It's like, it's different in the city than it is here, and you never know from one day to the next. Man, I used to know what's going on in the market, and even though I'm, heavily involved in working in it every day, you'd think I would know, but it's so unpredictable right now. What have you heard about the market?
It's kind of the same. I'm wondering when the right time to buy or sell it.
Right on, yeah. So what are you thinking of doing, buying or selling?
Not really sure.
Okay, so you own your own home right now? And are you thinking of getting like a cottage or something, or,
Maybe.
and why are you thinking of that?
Just someplace to get away.
Great.
Yes, I see what you're doing. So you're
Yeah.
trying it.
So you're thinking of a place to get away, so for you and the family, right? Cause like, I think if I remember correctly, somebody mentioned that you have 3 kids and you guys like to, you like cause I've got friends that are friends with you and I know that you like to go to their place and play on the lake some. So would you be thinking about getting a place on the lake? Okay, cool, right on, right, so just keep digging and asking the questions and then, yeah. Really will separate you from a lot of the competition.
Yeah. Kind of hard without feeling pushy, but that didn't feel pushy.
No,
It's easy.
because you're not saying work with me or like, no, I don't even go there. I don't even say, no, the end of the conversation, I'll say, if you ever have any other questions or you want some help, I'd be happy to help you. I won't bother you, right? But I'd be happy to help you. Just reach out anytime, right? And then the other person might say, here's my card, make sure you call me, don't buy from anybody else.
Yeah.
We're best friends now, right? That's sort of how it goes, right? That's the difference between, one style and another, I
Yeah.
guess it's selling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Identify the goal. So for contacts to close business, remain top of mind, leverage the mind share for referral business. So we all know, like, converting contacts to close business, we know what that means. Remaining top of mind, we know what it means. How do we do it? Do we actually have a plan in place for doing that? Think about your own business, think about what you're doing today. Do you have a plan in place for remaining top of mind? Because that's one of the keys right there, right? Because, like, if you could have a dozen, you could have like 150, 200, I don't know, 1,000 contacts. If you're not top of mind with them, they're not even gonna think about you, right? And leveraging mind share for referral business, well, it's, you go back to like, going too far back. Right there, right, the mind share. So this is where we want to be, like, in that top percent, right? I want to be the one they're going to think about. A lot of times when you show up, like if somebody invites you over to take a look at their property, a lot of agents don't want to feel, they feel like it's too aggressive or too pushy to assume the sale. So, okay, so when we list, here's some of the things that we should think about beforehand or how we should prepare, right? And our photographer's gonna love this place and, you know, that kind of thing, those little things, some people feel it's just too pushy or too aggressive. Yet at the same time, if you're there, there's like a 74% chance that I mean, there's a huge percentage, right, that it's you that's getting it. Why do you think you're there?
I think you need to show that you're confident coming in on an appointment. If you're not going to show confidence and you're kind of going to, you know, there's obviously a balance, but if you're going to walk in almost like you're a little bit fearful or you really want that listing so bad that you're nervous, and of course you're nervous going in, but I think you need to show the confidence to the client in order, if you want the client to have the confidence in you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Is that what you communicate when you go in for the first time? That,
Yeah.
no being pushy, but do you just automatically speak that way? Is it?
I'm pretty-
Heard that last week.
I think you can say positive things. I think as you're going through the meeting with the client, you can be positive about, you know, maybe you're not getting the listing, but it doesn't mean you can't say, well, when, you know, I'll get my drone guy out here, or, you know, like talk as if you are and show them that you're confident and that you know exactly how to do the job that you're going to do. You know, if it's a situation, how is the market? Well, you kind of know what they're looking at in the market. And I think what you need to do is say, you know, there's some volatility in the market, but if we price this right, there's no reason why we can't get to market. And, you know, but you also have to manage their expectations and not overpromise, because that's the first way to lose your client, is if you're going to overpromise and underdeliver.
Agree. Okay, so yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about touch plans. So communicating with your database. So there's 4 touches, like quarterly phone calls. And like everybody's got different personalities and everybody has different strengths. Jen doesn't need to make the calls.
I don't know that I'd say I don't need to. I would just say
You're pretty
I
successful.
don't. And I just, it's not my comfort level. And, you know, I've been in the business now, I'm heading to 19 years, and there's still things I'm uncomfortable with, like these random phone calls. And should I be doing them? Probably. Have I gotten myself over that hurdle of doing it? That would be one that it's a hard no. I have not gotten myself there. I have encountered and overcame a lot of fears in 19 years. That is one of those things that I just don't like doing. And I have not been able to convince myself to do it. But I'm not saying I shouldn't. I should.
Mindset, Jen, mindset.
Yep.
So,
And I have not gotten my mindset around that yet.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so they say 19 to connect, 36 to convert, 1 to submit. So the 4 touches, that's the hardest one. And Jen is no different than like 99% of us, right? So there's a thing called call bias, right? So like you could get yourself to call certain people, have that conversation because they're your friends and you want to talk to them and you enjoy catching up with them, seeing how things are going in their life. And then there's the list of people that actually kind of like that person and I kind of would like to follow up with them, but don't want to hear from me. Don't want to be, you know, intruding or imposing on them. So have you heard of the do the database too? So that's a way, there's a way of setting up your database so that you can make your quarterly calls and you eliminate or reduce the risk of call bias so that you're actually calling the ones even that you didn't want to call, right? And when something that may help with the mindset too is like, so I see there's like, you know, call people and then there's like 6 people at the bottom that weren't at the bottom of the list, but they ended up at the bottom of the list. And I'm like, I could just move on to the next quarter, right? Oh, I really don't want this. I just don't think that they're gonna want me to call. Then when you call, we're like so happy to hear from you, and like, this is so nice of a call, and thanks so much for thinking of me, and you're really happy because you had a great conversation and feel relieved because you had that tension about calling them, right? Um, so in all seriousness, if you think about, you actually did say they did business with you before, um, and of course they'd love to hear from you, right? And if they don't, um, you would know ahead of time. You would know that, okay, things went bad. They cursed at me. I cursed at them. Probably not going to call them, right? But other than that, don't curse at people. But other than that, like, that could they're going to want to hear from you. And it actually is true because I've lived it. I've seen it. I've called them, and I'm like, man, I'm glad I made that call. Right? Just to get caught up and then. Now, I don't want to get too far off track with this, but just something else that popped in my head. A lot of people feel like, yeah, but it's been 3 years. So there's a really good script for that. It's very simple, right? It's like, I call up my client. I say, hey, okay, so been waiting 3 years for you to call me, and you haven't. So I finally decided that I'm going to take the bull by the horns, and I'm calling you, right? So it's real. It's true, right? Okay. 12 touches, the email newsletter marketing. So a lot of people will do the 12 touches because that's an easy one. Right? Um, and then promotional direct mail, such as magnet calendar, market reports, etc. Then one touch, annual event, party, movie screen, whatever. That's something I don't do. We talked about it, think about it. We're probably gonna do it now because Aaliyah's gonna make me. But so the monthly email newsletter, market report, video, stuff that probably not probably not a recipe, probably something that's more related to real estate. That would be like, say, a timely thing, right? Because it's like once a month. Right? So in the spring, it could be, spring has sprung, and you know, time to prepare the garden or whatever, right? Something to do with the home, because that's kind of the business that you're in. Maybe touch could be, hey, as you're getting ready for the summer months, if you happen to be away and you still need somebody to maintain your property for you, here's a few people that I've worked with in the past to do, right? And you can give some landscaping names or whatever, just little things like that they're like, wow, that's so nice, so thoughtful, my realtor, right? So I get calls all the time. Who do you know that can do this? Who do you know that can do that? Who's your this person or that person, right? And it's a touch, and I didn't even make the touch. They reached out to me. The other two, there's two really simple ones that don't have to be all that creative, and it would be your home anniversary if you help them buy the place, and birthday, or wedding anniversary, or something along those lines, right? Like that you could on a couple times annually reach out. And
Direct mail also, I find, not that you're going to do it all the time because it's going to be more costly, but I've been sending out calendars for almost 19 years now. And there was 1 year they didn't have calendars. And so they all got a Christmas card instead of a calendar. And I had a lot of clients that I ran into in public that looked at me and went, what happened to my calendar? But then you'll hear them when they get their calendar, they're like, oh, you're home on my fridge, or, oh, the kids know who you are. They say that's Jen. Now we're ready to sell. You're here on my fridge. See, so that kind of thing, works. And I also find if you've sold people a home, if you can get them, it's a little sketchier on Cape Breton, I think, than Halifax, but I know Canada's not great. But you get one of those monthly neighborhood nurture type thing where it'll show them of any properties that have sold in their vicinity of the neighborhood they live in. They love that too.
Anybody else have any? What do you do? Anybody online or anybody in class? Anybody do anything that's creative or fun? We really have 7 participants online.
And I'm one of them.
Yeah, I'll speak up there. Like, I think, the calendars and stuff, it's not just, I see them sometimes on people's fridges. It could be mortgage broker, even a little notepad for taking things down some agents use and stuff. Those things stick around for people. So, it is a good connect. I got a friend that's in Fredericton. He had, bought and sold his house with an agent. And every year at Christmas time, he gets a little something, whatever his swag is that year, if it's a coffee cup, travel mug, or whatever. And one year he didn't get one, like you just said. And he was like, that guy gave me something every year, but this year he didn't. So when he did see him, because he works in a grocery store, and the agent came through the grocery store, same thing. I didn't think I've received anything from you this year. And suddenly something came to his door. So the agent has been on the client's mind, obviously. And that stuff that sounds silly and goofy, and sometimes it inexpensive, sometimes more expensive, but they do work, right?
You.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, I've got people set up on the birthday one, and I've had people in my birthday thing that get their little birthday note of happy birthday. And I know that they sold a property a couple of years ago that they didn't call me, even though I sold something for them before that. But all of a sudden they're sending me back a message through the system because they got their happy birthday thanking me. And then the next property they go to sell, guess who they're calling? So I've had that happen where they're automatically on there, and for whatever reason, they may have kind of sauntered away at some point that, maybe at that point in time in their life, they had a realtor that was closer in with the family, or they had just met them and they had that opportunity. They did that lead conversion, and maybe I wasn't reaching out as often as I should have been. But all of those little things, but I don't send the home improvement stuff, which, is great, but I'm more about information. Give them information on their neighborhood. If they've bought a house, give them information, the birthday cards, the home anniversary cards, the calendars, anything that, but those little print things, as crazy as it sounds, those calendars, they remember them and they expect them once you start sending them.
Exactly. So, and here's an idea. So how many times have we seen marketing pieces or advertisements that say free home evaluation, call me today, right? I'll give you a free home evaluation. There's a reason for that. I mean, it's the market's flooded with them. Like, we all do it, and there's a good reason to do it. That's what Jen was just saying too. Like, people want to know, like sometimes they want to know what's going on in the market, or they're on Viewpoint looking or wherever, because the back of their mind, they're trying to figure out what's my home worth really, right? So what would be the harm in doing an evaluation for their home without them asking, sending it to them? Let's do a plain and simple DMA with a disclaimer, says, hey, I haven't been in your home for a while. The major changes or upgrades wouldn't be reflected in here. This is a pretty good example of if things haven't changed a whole lot based on today's market, where we would be price wise. And people will really appreciate that. We didn't ask what they wanted. They didn't ask you to do it, is the main thing. Right? So one, the cement. So a high value touch that solidifies the relationship you have just established and opens doors for future interactions. What would be, so we talked about like 19 to connect, 36 to convert. So these are all the cool touches that we can do along the way, which are important. Why one cement? What would that, what can you think of? Like what could be a example?
Meeting face to face, you know, for coffee and.
That's exactly, if you guys didn't hear, so face-to-face meeting. Like, that's a valuable touch, I'd say, right? That's solidifying a relationship. Or at least getting one, you know. Definitely solidifying based, like, compared to not having that face-to-face, so. That's why, so they, like, you don't have the time, most people don't have the time or the ability. To meet face-to-face once a year with everybody in your database, it's almost impractical. When you think about who would be the ones that, well, Leah and I made the list. We didn't execute it yet because just didn't have time yet lately, but we made a list of our top. Who do we do the most business with? Who keeps coming back time and time again? And then who gives us the most referrals? I think we had, remember how many people, like 12 or 13 people. So those are the ones that you would want to reach out to and say, hey, do you and your husband or do you and your wife want to go out for dinner sometime? Or let's go for lunch, or let's go grab coffee. Right? And maybe they don't, you know, you're thinking in the back of their mind, they don't have time, want to take the time to be with you. You're doing this for your own gain. At the same time, if you're like, listen, I appreciate so much the business that you've given me, and I really want to, is there, you know, would you have time sometime, you know, what would you prefer? Go out for lunch, we can go grab a coffee. I really want to kind of get caught up again or whatever, right? And it's just keeping that, but you're gonna be close enough to that person. They're gonna know you're taking them out to say thank you. Right?
Genuine.
It is genuine, right? It really is. Yeah.
I can
Um,
chime in here with something to add if you guys would like.
Please.
Hey Grant, hey excuse me, Jennifer. I'm a big fan personally of experiences over things. So I definitely realize the value of sending things to people in our database because we need them to put us up and stay relevant and see us. But I'm also starting to offer experiences to people because I think that's something that has a different value for some people. Like you're talking about, Grant, either taking people out for a meal, or what I did this year for my business is I bought a pair of seasons tickets to the Mooseheads. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Mooseheads. I'll go to a couple of the games, but the main point is to be able to use that as a touch point for people in my database to call people and say, hey, you know, I've got tickets for the Mooseheads this night. Are you interested in going? Are you available? Would you like the tickets? Something like that, because that balanced out with a calendar on their fridge and then an experience to kind of match up with that, I think is going to help stick in people's minds.
Definitely.
Sorry, James, go ahead.
Nope, that was everything. Did
Okay. I
did
thought
that
I
come
cut
through?
you off there.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic idea. I've never tried anything along those lines, but it might be me learning a few things on this course too.
Yeah, and Mooseheads
So
was a really
James,
good option because the tickets aren't that expensive, to be honest, and it's something to get people out in the city. I mean, people with kids love to take their kids to it, or people with kids maybe also want a date night away from the kids. So I think it's you know, I'm still in my first year of real estate, so obviously it's my first year doing this, but I'll see how it goes. But I'm expecting to get some good feedback from it.
Good.
Oh, I know you will. It's a great idea, James.
Yeah.
Sure. That's awesome. Does anybody else have any really good ideas like that? Back to follow there. All right, crafting the message. And do you know what the 6 connection questions are? I found them. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just read them out. So, who are they? And my wrong glasses on. These aren't my reading glasses. What do they want or need to do? Where do they want or need to do it? Why do they want or need to do it? When do they want or need to do it? And how do they plan to do it? I think they're all pretty, yeah, that kind of makes sense because, you know, like you really need to know, first of all, what they're gonna do. And where do they want or need to do it? Well, that would be like, sort of like when we were talking earlier, Sue, it's like, oh, are you thinking about buying a cottage, right? Because you don't always want to assume that it's their house. Maybe they want to buy a rental property, or maybe they have a dozen rental properties they want to sell. And why? Maybe they want to sell their rental properties so that they can take all that money and invest it in an oceanfront property. Of course, when is important. Because you don't want to say, okay, let's start looking, want to buy a cottage, and you say, okay, well, let's line something up, we'll go looking next weekend, but you didn't ask them yet. Really, their plan was they didn't want to buy until next spring. You just lined yourself up for a whole year of looking at cottages before they're ready to buy one. How do they plan to do it? You know, like my question would be I just say, well, where do you think you're gonna get the money to do this? Oh, I wouldn't say that. So they can offer for immediate response. So do you think an example of that would be?
I think maybe, would you like me to set you up on an automatic search? Would you like me to put you in touch with this great mortgage specialist that I know? The more you can, I think the more questions you can get and that you can actually help them with and send them in the right direction. You're building the relationship as you do that.
Right, like you could say, they say we're looking to buy a cottage and we'd like to buy one right away. You could say, you could set you up in a search, or you could be a little bit more specific and say, I happen to know of a nice cottage on this lake. Would you like to set up a time to go look at it? Anything like that, right? So we're making an offer for an immediate response. You want to kind of get them engaged and
Or help them get started to get themselves in the position that they're ready to go. I find a lot of times when people reach out to you, they're like, yeah, I know what's on the market now. I just want you to set me up to see what's coming. Nothing out there interests me now. Or if there is something, they're going to say, I want to see 123 Smith Street. Like that's the one that caught my eye. I find a lot of times they've kind of looked around once they figured out what they want to see what is actually available right now.
right. Okay, so develop your 36 touch plan. Does anybody already have a 36 touch plan? So if you don't, then now's the time, like take a few minutes, start thinking about what would it look like?
And the child, well,
Yeah, I think,
it's not that.
yeah, she had a like a, so. Put an email off her, just say, you send from my email, so.
Yes.
That's why they're coming in now. What do you think?
In 10 minutes. Don't want to cut everybody short. So we can develop a 36 touch plan in 10 minutes, like, it's easy. Everybody back? Unless somebody has an objection, we're gonna get the party started again. Okay, so everybody developed their 36 touch plan in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes? No. Okay. What do you think, like, we've heard of this before? 36 touch plan or a 12 touch plan or whatever. What do you think the significance is, even though I know that it's pretty self-explanatory? It's like creating a way to almost automatically stay in touch with your database. But like, why?
Top lines.
100%, right? That's one of the only reasons why. Stay top of mind. Of course, we know why you want to stay top of mind. Part of the 36 touch plan is going to be calling people, the quarterly call. And I would argue that it's probably the most impactful. If you didn't do anything else and all you did was that quarterly call, be successful. Of course, you want to do more because it has to be. And part of the reason is like, so I've had people call me and say, we want you to come over, to look at our house. We're thinking about listing. I'll go over and they'll say, always like to ask in person. I just set the appointment and go. When I get there, I say, how did you hear of me? And or how did you choose me as one of the people that you're going to interview? And a lot of times, like, so like say one example would be, well, my cousin recommended you. As a matter of fact, we saw some of your marketing stuff and we were kind of impressed. Like, oh, okay. So like you like Facebook or whatever. No, actually my cousin had her phone because they all had them with them. And we were at a wedding together and I just said that we're thinking about selling. And then she said, oh, you should talk to my agent. He sends me these things like once a month or once or whatever. Here's one, right? And it shows like a little marketing piece, right? And all my contact information, which I had anyway, right? It was because they were receiving it. They thought of me, like they would have thought of me, would have recommended me. Every possibility they wouldn't have thought of me at the time, but they just recently received that, right? And I find that I've seen this happen way too many times over the years that make a phone call to somebody and just a quick little chat. How are things going? How's life? If there's anything that you ever need, let me know. Like, I don't know how to fix your plumbing or your electrical, but I have lots of people that do, right? So just keep me in mind and I'll help you source them out. Anything like that's just an example. So funny how 3 days later, call me. So strange that we were just talking. It's like so weird how that happens. We were just having a conversation, and then all of a sudden, now my son or daughter tells me that they're ready to buy a house. They've already talked to the bank. Everything's good, and they're okay. They want you to help them, right? So that's kind of like that's the whole concept. And if the majority of people have such a hard time doing that or thinking about that, right? Anyway, get off track. Goal setting to the now. What does that mean? Heck, everybody tell me what their thoughts are and what that means. to the now part that we're kind of digging into. Okay. Yeah, so like. For goal setting, so okay, so let's say this year I'm gonna do 20 deals. Why? Well, then you figure out why. How much money do I need to make? All that fun stuff. So a lot of times you kind of like figure out what are my bills? What are my expenses? How much money do I need? And oh, by the way, I really do want to take a trip somewhere. And I know that my stupid car is gonna break down again and I need extra money for this and this. But then you figure out how much money you need and you do your goal setting. Right? You figure out here's everything kind of lines up and this is the goal. But what about to the now? Like why now? So what it really means is that we know that we need to do this much business in a year. And if that means we're going to do 20 transactions, where are we going to get them? 9 times out of 10, most people's business is almost a 50-50 split. Like 10 listings, you get 10 buyers. A lot of times your buyers come from your listings. So we're narrowing it down. Okay, we're coming up to the now, we're approaching it, right? So got to do 20 deals. I've just determined that 10 are going to be listings, 10 are going to be buyers. I've also just determined that because everybody tells me this, 10 of my buyers are mostly going to come from my listings. So then why don't I just focus on being my listings? The way that I'm not telling people I'm not interested in helping them buy, that's not the point. But the point is if you focus your time and energy on getting the listings, from the listings, you're gonna get the buyers. So now, okay, so what am I gonna do to get the listings? Well, there could be a number of different things. Like you could be giving tickets to the Mooseheads. And then they're gonna be talking about you to your friends and family. You could be having them on the 36 touch. There's all of the things that we talked about before. That gets, so you're top of mind. And then, so you've got the listing, but what am I gonna do like right now? What am I gonna do today? How can I do that, right? So know that you need to contact, say, 100 people in order to get 50 appointments. And out of those 50 appointments, 25 of them are going to end up transacting. And out of those 25, maybe 10 or 12 are going to transact with you. So it's a numbers game. You don't know your numbers. You won't know your numbers unless you track them. But if you're like new or new to tracking, you got to start somewhere. And there are some stats out there. I don't remember them off the top, but it kind of comes down to what do I need to do on a monthly basis for business? So then if that's on a monthly basis, then let's say I got to call 100 people. Then, okay, well then how many a week? Well, 25 a week. If I got to call 25 people a week, let's say I want to work 5 days a week, then I need to call 5 people a day. That's how you're kind of for the now, right? So today is now. I need to call 5 people today. Simplify it, right? Okay, so combine smart plans. Curate 36 touches for your contacts. One and done, right? So you spend 4 or 5 hours or whatever developing a smart plan, or even if it's 10 hours, it doesn't matter. Because then you get to use that same, set it up and just keep adding people into it.
Use the smart things? No, you use the regular.
So no, so I have. And then stopped.
I was
Because-
sort of wondering, like, if
I
there's
use the-
content related to, like, say Halloween, there's content online that we can access in the smart
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there is. Yeah,
Yeah,
you go into the design
design.
app. Applet, yeah,
Yeah, you can-
between that and Canva seems to be what most people use.
Yeah, you can go in and some of the smart plans you can do yourself. Like again, most of them are this many touches involved, and I know the touches thing is the important thing, but I've got my own way of doing it. So I've set up a couple where, like, I do have my monthly neighborhood nurture, which is the first one. Well, that's bi-weekly, but that one, and that just sends out, and if there's nothing in their neighborhood that is sold in the last 30 days, they won't get an email. It'll just say, you know, it didn't go because there's been no recent sales. And then you can set up like a birthday one where you build the birthday card in Designs, you set up the smart plan and you add people to it, and you can set it up on repeat. So essentially, if it's a birthday one, you have to have a different start date, obviously, for every contact. But then you can put it on repeat. So in 365 days, they're getting another email. So once you get it set up and you get all those people in there and it's all set, then you don't have to worry about that again. They're just going to get their birthday card on their birthday. If you're due, same with home anniversary. But then when you're dealing with ones like Halloween or Christmas or something like that, then essentially it's going to go out on this certain date. Everybody's getting it at the same time. And once you get those things set up, then all of a sudden, thinking of your 36 touches, well, maybe you've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 smart plans set up, and they're getting their 12 touches through smart plan, the neighborhood nurture, and then, you know, a few more, but now they're on autopilot. So it's like, you're still going to want to keep, you know, involved with your database and whatnot, but at least that's sending you a little autopilot so that you're not constantly obsessing over your database. And did I do my how many touches out? Like, this will kind of cover some of it for you, so you know that they're getting it.
That's really good.
So I have in the past, and then I saw Leah is now doing admin, and she's learning how to do the smart plans and working on building some out. But I did have them running for a while. Then, but I just don't have the time.
That's what I was trying to wonder, like, how long would it take to set that up? But if I devoted a day to it, just did it.
Yeah.
It's very time consuming off the get-go. I just started a few new ones with mine. Obviously, like ones like Halloween or Christmas, it's the same date for everybody every year, you know, or they're a little less time consuming because you got to do your design, get it set up, and then you can just take all your contacts and dump them, right? When it's a birthday or a home anniversary, everybody has a different start date, different anniversary date. So then you're going into your contacts and you have to add the contact, and then you have to put the start date, which is, you know, the day of their birthday or whatever. A lot more time consuming. I put about 750 people in my happy birthday, smart plan, which essentially did take me almost a whole day.
And you tag them.
I didn't tag them. I just added them to the smart plan and put in their start date. So like I said, that's going to take 2 to 3 times as long or more than the Christmas one that everybody's getting it on the 25th of December, and you can just dump everybody in with the same the start time. So there is time involved. You know, if you have admin that can help you with it, great. I don't have admin. I do it all myself, which I need my head examined, but you know, it's almost like, you know, the day that I decided to do this one, it was like, okay, well, I'm doing this. I'm getting all of these people in there today, and then I'll be done with this part of my job for the day. But now the beauty of it is I've got everybody set up on birthday plans. And if I add a new contact, then all I have to do is add one person to that smart plan.
Okay, that's really smart.
Yeah. So it's like the initial setup is the time consuming part. Adding somebody here and there is easy.
And so, yeah, and I've birthday plan, so I do have them. And we'll get a notification and then send out a handwritten birthday card. But I actually even stopped doing that because we had a flood and I lost all my birthday cards, so I gotta get some.
Oh, no.
Right, but it's been
I
so
do
long
both.
since I had time.
I do both. Everybody gets a home anniversary card. Everybody gets a birthday card. And then the rest is email, like, you know, holidays, and then they get a backup email for their happy birthday.
But people like getting that card in the mail.
Oh, they love it. And so on a weekly, if you go into command and you hit the little house in the top left-hand corner, at the top, you're always going to see that, you know, there's 22 birthdays coming up, or there's 19 home anniversaries coming up if you have the data in there. And so on a weekly basis, I'll just pop in and see who I haven't sent it to. And a lot of times, you know, like I'm not doing it on the day. You're getting your card on your birthday month. But when you do it, you can actually go into the contact and add an activity and put in that you mailed the card. So next week when you go in, I can see, okay, here's the note for this. I've already done cards for these 5 people that are the first ones showing up. But you know what? These 10 haven't gotten them again. And then I just handwrite, you know, a little signature on the card, my card inside the birthday card, and off they go. And people do love them. I've gotten texts, I've gotten emails thanking, again, it's nothing, but all of a sudden they're thinking about me.
Qualifying potential buyers and sellers. Misunderstandings, yeah, so, okay, so what myth do you hold about finding buyers and sellers?
It's kind of what we already talked about, it's getting out of your head, getting your mindset in the right place.
Yeah. So, a lot of people think that, gotta get on the phone, I mean, that, and when I say these things, there's so many agents out there that are found their way to be successful. Everybody's way is a little bit different, or most people's way is a little bit different. And so I'm not discrediting any of the way when I say it, but like, so, but a lot of people feel like I have to go knocking on doors, or I have to call strangers on the phone. That's a misunderstanding. You don't really have to do that. Where I said, like, the best way really is the way that you're gonna be most comfortable. Because if you're really, you say, you do have to break out of your comfort zone. So if you're, the most comfortable way for you is to sit and wait for them to come to you, that's not gonna work, right? So you gotta figure out a way, how can I proactively find my clients? Am I wrong? Does anybody disagree? Who thinks that they can just not do anything and their buyers and sellers will just come to them? Okay, so how buyers found their agent. Look at the top one. Look at the significant difference between. The referrals from friends, neighbors, or relatives. That's huge. But what if, I mean, like, okay, so then we've got, okay. Here's the agent for a previous transaction, inquired about property, what they saw online, website, open houses, referrals from another agent, visited an open house, right? So like, you could spend every single weekend doing open houses, and you're gonna you will pick up buyers. And sellers actually, because sometimes they come to interview you and don't even know it, right? But they live down the street. Why wouldn't you spend, at least starting out, the majority of your time right there? How do we get referrals? Look at this one. It's kind of alarming. You use the agent previously for a transaction, and 2%, 19% of the time they come back to them. What's that tell you? It tells me that if you get a referral, you work with that person, and you help them transact. So you've helped them sell their house and buy their next house, we'll say. It's exciting, right? That's pretty cool. Now you got 2 transactions. All right. It's also exciting because now you've got twice the opportunity to impress them. And we've been talking all morning about being top of mind. So what better opportunity to be top of mind than during the transaction? So I spend most of my time and effort while we're transacting, doing whatever I can to impress client and go over and above for them. Not even necessarily asking, but I do ask for referrals sometimes, depending on the situation. But a lot of times we end up getting referrals anyway. When do you think people talk the most about buying and selling? When they're doing it, right? So if your client is, you know, or they're looking to buy a house and you're out taking them out and you're shopping, they're excited, or they're focused on, that's their life rate at that moment in time, right? It's kind of like the biggest thing going on for them. And they're meeting up with friends and family and they're having little get-togethers. They're talking about what they're doing. Wouldn't it be nice if, like, you're not going to be able to be there and say, but me, what about me? Tell them about me, right? You're not going to be able to do that. So if you totally impress them during the transaction, whatever way you feel comfortable, right? They will be telling their friends. So like, for example, if it's a listing, so let's say now our market is different, the listings can stay on there for a while, and maybe sometimes long enough to expire even, and another agent take them over. So during that time, if you have say, 123 Smith Street was on the market for 45 days and just expired, and then they called you, then you listed it. And let's say the other agent put the sign on the lawn and they never heard from them again. Other than one time they called and said we should drop the price. What if you took over the listing? You're going all out, like you're calling them, hey, just checking in to see. I know it's a silly call, but I haven't been by in a couple days. How does my sign look? Is it still upright? Is that everything still look good out there? My smiling face on the lawn? Because after all, it's all about the eye candy on the front lawn, right? Like we gotta, and just I make a joke about it, but then next day or the day after that, another quick call. Hey, did you happen to notice the new listing that come on the market? One come on down the street, very similar to yours, priced a little bit higher. So hopefully, 2 houses will attract more people and we should look pretty good against that competition. Right? Or, hey, tried 17 times to get feedback from our viewing. I just can't get it. My apologies, but normally that means that they're not going to make an offer anyway. That's another phone call. Like you call them, then you do a weekly report. And their friends come over for a barbecue. They're like, so still on the market, eh? And see, you got another agent. Yeah, and this one's way different. Other one, 45 days, never heard from them, only once, asking for a price reduction. This one called me up the other day and said, hey, no, we haven't gotten the traction that we need yet. And I know that we do need a little bit more in order to be successful. However, I'm not ready to blame it on the price just yet, because I feel like the other properties aren't getting any activity either. I've called some of the other agents for us just to ask, because it's important for us to know these things. Maybe next week we might have to look at the price, but right now let's just hang in there because it doesn't seem to be too many buyers out there. My agent actually took the time to do that and then called me to explain it to me and made me feel a whole lot better about it. And by the way, when they do call next week and ask for the price drop, I'm easily going to give it to them. So if you perform that way, And the next line. Use the agent previously for transaction. Next line, your percentage is gonna be, your percentage will be way higher. People are gonna repeat and transact with you again. Just as an example, right? Anybody have any questions about this or wanna chime in?
I've got a question, Grant.
Sure.
Regarding getting like runoff business, I'll call it, from listings. I have not yet seen any direct runoff from a listing that I had in the springtime, and that has kind of surprised me, disappointed me a little bit, because I had heard that getting a listing has all this potential to bring more business to you outside of the listing itself. Do you think my expectation was unrealistic? And there's still a lot of time for runoff business to come from that, because that never really expires. But is there generally like a time frame of when like it's most probable to get runoff business from a listing? Because this listing that I'm talking about was back in May, and I think I had been really excited because it was my first listing, and I thought, you know, great to have my first listing that went really well, but also on top of that, I'm going to get more business out of this, which I haven't seen happen yet. So maybe just any comment that
Right.
you have on that.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know what you expected to get from it, like how much business you expected to get from it. Let's just say that you were hoping to at least get another client, like whether it's another listing or another buyer. It's not unrealistic to think that. But it depends on what you do with it. So, have you read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book that Gary Keller wrote?
If sitting on my bookshelf looking at it counts, then yes, I have.
It does look really nice up there. I know,
Yeah.
James. Okay. So, one of the things that they talk about in there are the 3 L's: leads, listings, and leverage. So you get a lead, you turn it into a listing, then you leverage the listing. So it all depends on what you're doing to leverage the listing. So just by it being on the market, you're not necessarily going to get more business from it. And it's not as like simplified as people make it seem, that you get a listing, you know, then you're going to get a buyer from that listing. In reality, it's a numbers game like anything else. So sometimes if you get a listing and it sells overnight, and you didn't have time to get any more business from it. And other times you get a listing that happens to be one of the ones that kind of meet the criteria for the majority of the buyers. So like, you know, if you had a $1.2 million listing in an area, or at a time when, like, say, you know, the average price point is $500,000, then probably not going to get a lot of leverage out of that listing, but you might get some. When you get the hot listing that's you know, $500,000 in an area where we're selling, but not overnight, it could take, you know, 3 to 4 weeks or whatever. Those are the ones that a lot of times you'll have more success in getting, you know, a little bit of leverage out of it. If that makes any sense?
Can I ask a question? How do you mean, like, okay, so you met people showing them the house and then it didn't materialize into anything, or how? I'm just curious how you thought that the clients would come from the listing. Like, is it that people didn't follow back up with you, or?
Well, I had just heard through other agents in the office that sometimes like getting a listing will often translate into new buyers that you get. And I did a lot for the listing, like a VIP open house, a public open house, followed up with sold flyers. So I was expecting to get, like, it seemed like when I was doing the listing, I was over at the house all the time, and neighbors were seeing me. I feel like there was a bit of a buzz in the neighborhood, because I was doing a lot for it. and I had the VIP open house. People were coming in talking about how they thought that was such a cool idea. So it just seemed like all of the wind came out of that sale pretty quickly. And I just expected some people to reach out to me, either buyers or sellers, who had some experience with that listing in one way or another.
Did
That's
you,
fair. Sorry.
have you seen anything else directly in that neighborhood that has gone for sale since that?
Yeah, it was in the west end of Halifax, so I mean it's a busy area. So there have been other sold homes since then. And I mean I certainly didn't expect to not see other people's signs pop up in the neighborhood, but I thought maybe maybe a buyer would come through, or potentially a seller. But again, I do recognize that you never know when things are going to happen in this business, and not everybody is ready right now. Which is part of the reason that I'm thinking maybe I set my expectations too high, thinking that it was going to happen immediately.
I mean, obviously, you met some people and you got your name in there, but I mean, personally, I found like, I get a listing, and if I end up getting, say, leverage of a new buyer or whatever from that listing, a lot of times I find that's the call coming in that wants to view the property. You take them through, you chat with them, obviously first questions, do you have a realtor? Are you pre-qualified? But you get to that house and you're going to pretty much know at the listing if it's something they're interested in, not interested in. And then I have essentially, after that, if they say, well, you know what, this isn't what I thought it was, it's not going to work for me, then, well, since you don't have a realtor, would you like to work together? You can't use that house as a way to try to bring new buyers. But if you've met that buyer and you followed up with them after the viewing and they said, look, I appreciate it, but it's not for me, it's not the house that I was interested in, then a lot of times, that's your opportunity to kind of have that conversation of, well, would you like to meet? We could discuss your needs, get you set up, get a buyer agency done, start working to find you the right house. I just feel that, I mean, it's great you put the sold flyers out, and maybe you go back at that neighborhood again and you put like a little brochure out, a door hanger, whatever, but that one-on-one, and when you find out they don't have a realtor, I feel like that's your opportunity.
That's the opportunity. Yeah.
They're not going to jump at you, but that initial meeting is making it easier for you to take advantage of that possibility.
Yeah, got it. And I guess maybe I'm also throwing it out to you and Grant as very experienced agents. Like, do you also go through the having a successful listing and you don't see direct business coming from that, or do you even know?
Yeah, tons of times for me. Like,
Okay.
It's
you're
hit
not
and
gonna get
miss
business
really,
every
but
time.
the point is that if I didn't have the listing, and I have nothing to market, and I have nothing to leverage. So when you have the listing, you can advertise it on your Facebook page. You can call people that you know to let them know, there's all kinds of things you can do to leverage that listing. But yeah, there are so many times where I'm like, pleasantly surprised that I end up picking up 3 new buyers and a new seller from one listing. And you
Right.
could get the next 6 listings and not get any new business from that.
Yeah.
But like you said, though, you kind of did hit the nail on the head that of. It's like there could be people that see it in the background and they say, oh, look, James got another listing, and wow, that's a nice marketing piece. And and look, there he goes again. Look, he's got some happy buyers holding the sign. And you're building your brand and you're building your recognition on your listings too, right?
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed on that one. And, it might be that the neighbor 5 houses down who's good friends with these people isn't willing right now, but in 2 years' time, they call them up and go, hey, who was it you had? Because a lot of time they're not going to remember your name.
Right.
Sometimes we're just another realtor, right?
Yeah.
And so they may call them and say, hey, were you happy with James? Who was your agent? Oh, James. Okay. Were you happy with him? Blah, blah, blah. And then maybe you're getting that call.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily trace it back either to that
Yeah.
listing. Yeah. Got it. So but what I'm getting is go into the listing, maybe not expecting to get anything, and then anything that comes from it is a bonus. And I'm not
Yeah.
disappointed if nothing comes. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Got it.
like
Thanks
those
for
leads
taking the
have to
time.
be converted the same way as anything else, I guess, is the big, you know, like what we were
Right.
talking about earlier and spending the time and converting the lead. Start somewhere and having these listings is always the best place to, if you get them, then start converting, you know what I mean?
Right.
Work with that. And it might
Got
not be immediate, but
Awesome. That's helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
guys.
just having the listing is not gonna get you more business necessarily. You really gotta work it. Okay. Moving on, so. Okay, let's talk opportunities. Does everybody use, I think we all do now, right? Everybody. There's maybe a small number in the office that don't. This looks familiar to everybody. Hear a bunch of head shake. Okay, so. Able, ready, and willing. Come from curiosity. What does that mean, come from curiosity? So. My take on that really is that, we did kind of cover this earlier too, like, asking good questions, asking great questions. It's people engaged, you're curious. Like, so a good question would be around, like, cable, okay? So the question would be, so, just out of curiosity, how long have you lived in your home? Because they're planning on, we'll say, buying a cottage again, example, right? So how long have you lived in your home? Oh, nice. Been there 20 years. Probably have the mortgage almost paid off, right? And so maybe that one question tells you that they're able to purchase. And so have you done any research? Like, have you spoken to, will you be having a mortgage broker involved? Or, like, I guess they'll have to be maybe one way or another unless you just save money for the cottage. Right? I always assume that they already know their financial capability to buy. But you still want to ask questions because sometimes people don't. Sometimes they don't know for sure and they think that they know, right? And then willing. So, hey, have you had a chance to talk to, are you gonna have a mortgage broker involved or how's that gonna work? Yeah, actually, but we're gonna take some equity out of our house, and just buy the cottage. Cool, okay. And so have you had a chance to look at the new interest rates? Like, did you talk to them about how that would increase the payments on your mortgage? Oh, yeah, no, we didn't have that conversation. So are you willing to increase your payments on your own mortgage, right? Because sometimes people are thinking, I just take equity out, buy it, it's done. Right? And oh yeah, no, we're good on that front, and cool. So what's the plan? When are you gonna buy the cottage? And well, we're not ready yet. Waiting for my promotion at work, and we've got a couple of things we got to do. We want to get the house fixed up, and we want to do some things. So how we know that they're able and willing, but they're not quite ready. So coming from curiosity just means ask the right questions, find out if they're able, willing, and ready to do something now. That makes sense. Does anybody have anything else to add to that? Okay. Classify your opportunities. Why would you want to do this? You got, so A, so they're all buyers and sellers. You get A, B, and C. Able, ready, and willing to do business in 14 days. 0 to 14, 15 to 60, or 61 plus. So we have our opportunities pipeline built out pretty much that way, isn't it, Aaliyah? Like we've got like, in your one that's actually, so it's set up to go this flow this way in command. If you just use the pre-settings, I kind of switched it around because I kind of like to see 61 days plus over here. Then I'm moving them along. I just feel like it seems more natural to go from the left to the right. And then when they're over there on the right-hand side, they're ready to bounce out of that opportunity stage into now they're transacting and now they're an active buyer or an active seller. Right? Point is that you should organize it that way, like it would be helpful. So when you come from curiosity, find out if they're ready and able and willing to transact. And then you kind of get an idea of when they might be, and then that's kind of how you pop them into there. Okay, so why bother qualifying? So not sure what fair housing regulations are. When you qualify somebody, we know why you want to do that. You don't want to, somebody says, hey, yeah, no, we want to buy a house. Awesome. Okay, let's go tomorrow morning at 8. We'll start looking. Right? And then 6 months later, decide to make an offer on a house. They waited 6 months because they weren't quite ready yet, but you didn't ask. Then they make an offer on a house and then they get declined for financing because you didn't ask if they were pre-approved or not. And you can get them set up with your mortgage specialist. So, when you're qualifying them, I'd say following a checklist is the key thing.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a list of things that you want to know. Sort of go through the same process with everybody, right? Ask all the same questions to the same people. Probably in different ways, because it depends on the person. This is just a way to help really keep you from forgetting really to ask some important questions. And then of course you've got some notes. Back to, we talked about the database, like feeding your database. Feed it and water it. So that's kind of what they're talking about. Part of what they're talking about is, you get ask these questions. It's a good idea to then load this stuff into command in the notes section, right? Has an agent taken you and shown you any properties? Yes, no. If yes, how's it going? Why do you want to ask that question?
But all goes back to qualifying. All goes back to qualifying. You don't want to be out wasting your time running around with somebody who's not positioned to purchase. Then you're dealing with their disappointment that they weren't positioned to purchase. You're also, the seller's expectation of you is to be only bringing qualified buyers to the property. It basically all starts with that. And you need to know, are they in a buyer agency with somebody else? Because if they are, then you can take them out all you want, but you shouldn't be, because they're obligated to purchase through that other realtor. And so the more you qualify your clients and the more you know about the client and the more solid you are with your clients, there's going to come a point where you may end up in a multiple offer scenario where that agent is presenting offers that are almost mirror image. And I think it's naive to think that when a situation like that, and it comes down to it, that it's not going to be that realtor saying, this agent is really solid, and like when they, you know, they qualify their clients. They have a lot less that fall on financing. I trust in this agent, and it will come down to that at some point.
Exactly, and it makes you look more professional.
Yeah. So if I'm up against somebody who's not qualifying their clients, and every second deal they throw at an agent is falling because they don't have financing, and I'm doing the complete opposite. Well, if there's two mirror images, that agent's going to feel more comfortable in my offer than that other offer without knowing any of the clients, because of the fact that they're going to feel confident that I qualified them in all the ways that I should have.
And so you could just take this exact consultation and use it yourself, or you can modify it to make it a little more personal for you. Okay, so get B and C buyers to the touch plans. Of course you want to do that, right? Because not everybody will turn out to be an A. And some of them will, but it might be 6 months down the road or a year. So this is similar to what we just talked about earlier. And qualify your sellers. Use a pre-listing questionnaire. Again, same idea, right? So it's just a little bit more structured. It's not like some people think that if I'm doing that, it's like a dog and pony show and I'm showing up and doing a flip chart and, you know, in my fancy suit and trying to razzle dazzle them. Really, that ultimately it's like, if you're taking it seriously and you're asking them really great questions and you're getting them engaged, they start to trust you and like you, and they know that you care, or you wouldn't be asking these questions. And that's really how you end up winning. Ultimately. And you'd be surprised, most people don't do this. Don't have a specific list of questions that they would ask. Yeah. They just go the wrong way. Like, it doesn't want to go any further.
Is that the last page?
That's the end.
Is that the last one?
I think that is, yeah.
Holy
it
smokes,
is.
how can you do that? That is the last
Yeah.
one.
There's
Cool.
specific questions that you ask callers when you first meet them, but maybe a little different there, or how do you find?
Yeah, so there's some things that I'll try to keep it really short and sweet on the phone when the appointment's getting booked, so that I have more to ask them when I'm there. So I'll try to kind of like ask everything when I'm there. And you know, a lot of times I'll just say, hey, are you going to be more comfortable with sitting at the table or sitting in the living room? Because you know, whatever is more comfortable for you. And then just out of curiosity, how did you choose me? And I used to say, how did you choose me as one of the candidates to interview for helping you sell your home? Now I just say, how did you choose me as your agent? Right. But anyway, so just you ask that like a question. You want to know, where did they come from? Like, was it an ad? Was it a sign? And then is it, because that's what's going to help you determine what are the next questions, right? And so when they say, well, first of all, I see your signs everywhere, or yeah, I saw your sign down the road and then it had sold on it. And I asked my cousin and they said that you're a good person to talk to. And so then okay, so it's a referral. And you've got a little bit of brand recognition. But then I'll say, okay, cool, and kind of like a little bit, so the first few questions are more around, how did they choose me and that kind of thing. Then it's like, okay, so enough about me, I wanna know about you. How long have you lived here? When you purchased the home, tell me about your life at that time, like, tell me about what was going on, right? And they'll say things like, well, just finished up school in Ontario and with a job here and wanted to be in this area. Why did you want to be in this area? Well, because I had family members. Oh, cool. Are they still here? Right. So we're asking important questions, keeping them engaged, but they're also just going with the flow. Right? So, okay. So you have your parents are down the road, one sibling is down the road, and a cousin. Awesome. And then any other family that's close by? Oh, yeah, yeah, no, or friends, right? Then, what about the area do you really love? Cause like, when I'm marketing the home, I always like to know, it really helps me, to sell the property if I know what attracted you to it. And so you can be a little bit general and let them talk, then ask more questions based on what they're saying. They say something about the school. Right, okay. You have how many? 2 kids? They're grown up now. They've gone through the school system yet. What did you think of the school system? Do you like it? Then sometimes like you'll get whatever for the answer, and I don't know if it really matters because it's always a matter of opinion, right? But your point is that you're asking questions that are relevant to why you're there and to you gaining knowledge to be able to help sell lifestyle of living there. And they know that you care because you're asking.
You necessarily ask if, would you still have a mortgage on the home or how much of the mortgage study? I'm asking if that be necessary always, or if you ask.
It's a good question to ask at the right time. So,
Yeah.
so right now you're there to make them feel good about hiring you, right? And once you get the listing and before you go live, say, okay, I've got a few questions for you. Here's some things we need. But we're going to send you a form to fill out for Nova Scotia Power. We're going to, we need a copy of the taxes. Oh, by the way, so what's the remaining balance on the mortgage? These are things that we need to know in order to market your home, right? What do you mean? Why do you need to know that? Well, I don't want to see you in a jam. Right? Now I know that you probably, like, obviously you're not worried about it, so it's probably perfectly fine. However, it's my responsibility to make sure that I ask. Because if I didn't ask and then it wasn't set up the way it should be, then we could all be in trouble. So, as you know, we talked about it's 5% plus HST to get the home sold. It's going to be, legal fees and whatever deed transfer or you haven't had the new registration done, so that's going to be $1,800. So you add it all up, making sure that there's enough equity, right? And the thing is, I assume that there is, but I'm not allowed to assume. I just need to know. You don't need to show it to me or prove it to me. I just have to ask the question to trigger the thought. Because if you did refinance for whatever reason, and when we sell the home, there's not enough money to pay for the lawyers or back taxes or real estate fees, that could put you in a jam where there could be a lawsuit. And I know you don't want that.
Or if they're blocked at co-mortgage at all if they're selling, like, do you ask that question?
And have you checked with the mortgage specialist to see what the penalties are? Any other questions for Jen or I? Okay. Everybody good then? We're gonna shut her down. If I can figure it out.
Thanks, guys.